Okay, I'm recording on this computer itself. So, right. So let us start. Bhagavad Gita, contents of the Gita summarized. We are in chapter 2. We have finished about 50 slokas. Let us pay obeisance to Sri Radharada Govinda. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Nanakashalakaya Chakshurmitam Ena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Ena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapada Kamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavscha Shri Rupam Sagarajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vittam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakana Vittamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dino Bandho Jagat Pate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatrabhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitam Nam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Te Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatesha Tarine Jayo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So let us see what we did. So we were now we are in the last section, 2.54 to 2.72 verses. So we have finished about 53. So what it was, we started with the Arjuna had some doubts again and he was indecisive and he surrendered to the Lord telling, I am your disciple, you are my guru, you explain to me, you clear these doubts to me. Then Krishna starts with the Jnana. What was the Jnana Atma Tattva? He starts with giving that we are not the body, we are the soul. So our true identity is the soul, but we are in this material world and living in this thing. And for the soul, it is eternal and there's no death. And then but that is for killing the relatives. He says they are not killing anybody. They are there before and they'll also be tomorrow, the future. They are eternal souls. Only this body is like a soul. Dress you are changed. Then we talked about he said there's no enjoyment. Then he gave the karma kanda. He talked about the duty. That is, for gains come from dutiful fighting and losses come from not fighting. So you fight, there's a win-win situation. If you win, you'll go to the heavens. You will enjoy the kingdom. If you lose, you'll go to Swarga. So anyway, there's a win-win situation. You just do your duty. Then he said to go beyond your duty. That is when he started talking about the Buddhi Yoga. It has both Bhakti Yoga and Nishkama Karma Yoga without any restriction. So now we are going to be in this Citta Prajna. So what was the recap? Thus far, I have described this knowledge to you through analytical study. Now, you will explain in terms of working without futility. Because he said it will be sinful. No? Arjuna was worried. It will be sinful. He said no. When you do the work for the Lord, there is no reaction. So the Buddhi Yoga is explaining now in these verses. That's what we did in the last class. You can free yourself from the bondage of works. And how we have to do it? He said, Vyavasatmika buddhi reka kuru nandana bahu saka hi anantascha buddhayo vyavasa. That means you have to be one resolute in the purpose. You have to be one-pointed intelligence. You have to be fixed in that intelligence. You have to be fixed in the determination to be in this path. And if you are not determined, then you'll go into all directions in the material. You'll get caught into the Maya. So he says, unless you are Vyavasatmika, resolute in this purpose, thing. And why we should do that? He said there is, in this spiritual path, whatever we do, there's no loss or diminution. Because when you go to, when after death, when you take another body or another thing, this, whatever we have accumulated in the spiritual path, it gets added to the, it doesn't get lost. We'll always have it in the next birth. If you have done 5% advance, you will be starting from there, 5%, and you will advance much more. So, whereas any success in material thing will be lost. Because again, when you take a new body, again you have to do your ABCD, again you have to go to kindergarten, again you have to do all that. And the success is not carried over. Whereas for spiritual path, there is no loss or diminution. And then he explained about all that, and then he talked about the Nishkama Karma. He says you have a duty to perform your duty, but you are not entitled for the fruits. Ma kaleshu kadacha, na karma pala hetu. So, because we are not the cause of the result, so we are not entitled. But you should not say that I won't do my duty. So then he talked about Nishkama Karma Yoga, and then he gave the benefits of this Buddhi Yoga. Buddhi Yoga covers both Bhakti Yoga and you'll be free from good and bad reactions, and then freedom from cycle of birth and death, then indifferent Vedic rituals. I mean, you will go beyond the Vedic rituals. You won't get bogged down by the Vedic rituals. You'll be going beyond that once you are fixed in Krishna consciousness. And then that is why we are doing that, because you realize your relationship with the Lord. That is your eternal servitor. You're in that self-realization. So, and then he goes back to Godhead. So now when he explained all this concept, and then how you don't get sinful reactions, you're not bogged down because you will be doing Nishkama Karma Yoga and you'll be being Krishna conscious. Once, then what happens? The Sthita Prajna, that means you'll be in self-realization. So what is the thing in nutshell? We had the Jnana, Karma. Now he says to combine that. You have to have that knowledge as well as you have to do a duty and go. I mean, don't think about your happiness or distress. You go beyond that, beyond enjoyment. That is selflessly do be dutiful. Nishkama Karma. And why? Without material desires. Don't desire. You just do your duty and offer the results to Krishna. That is Vyavasatmika Buddhi. So now Arjuna wants to know how this works. How does a person who are in this samadhi, in this consciousness, how they are thinking? So once you have understood the thing, then you need to go, you need some examples. You need to know how to identify. Okay, so all the theories thing, but we need to know how people have practiced it and how do they look. So that's the thing we are going to see now in the next. So this is the query by Arjuna about the Sthita Prajna. How he becomes fixed in Krishna consciousness and how do we identify them. So this is, the link is for this week 53 when he says, no, you're fixed in trance of self-realization when it's no longer disturbed by the Vedas. So how they attains that consciousness. That is what you are going to see. Arjuna uvacha sthita prajnasya ka bhasha samadhistasya keshava sthitadhi kim prabhaseta kim asita vrajeta. Arjuna said, O Krishna, what are the symptoms of the one whose consciousness is thus merged in transcendence? How does he speak? And what is his language? How does he sit? And how does he walk? I mean, don't take it from the literally meaning, speak, walk, or sit and thing, but there's a deeper meaning into this, what Arjuna is asking. Because what are the same? Unless we know, if the Krishna says you be in Krishna consciousness, then we must know how the person was, one who has practiced it. How does he look? And if we know such a person, if we are able to identify such a person, then it will help us to take shelter of him, isn't it? Then you can take his guidance. Then you can associate with such a person, and he'll become your role model. Then whatever the Krishna is, whatever the Krishna concept is, then it become more clarified. He'll be able to understand it much better. So that is the reason how actually whatever Arjuna is asking, it is for us only. See, we all knew the theory. Okay, we have to do a duty, we have to be in this consciousness and things. But it's unless we find somebody living person, living soul, behaving like that or being in that consciousness, then it is easy for us to follow them. It's easy to get fascinated. I mean, you will get inspired to do it. So now Arjuna is asking about the qualities. And then, though it looks simple, like, what does he speak or how does he say, it has got more, questions are more philosophical in nature. So this is the understanding we need to go deeper into it. And in all that, one who is transcendentalist, who is the Vyavasthatmik Buddhi, who is in this one-pointed intelligence, who are in Buddhi. Okay. So here, when you say symptoms, they're the characteristics. Like, if we know a person is rich, then we can see by his opulences. He would have had a car, he will have a big house, and things from that you can make out that he is a rich person, isn't it? Or if a person is diseased, then by the symptoms of the disease, we can come to know that person has some disease. He's having a fever or he's having some problem with his skin or whatever be the symptoms. So same way here, symptoms we have to know. That is Krishna starts explaining in verse 2.55, okay, 55th verse. And then how does he speak? That is covered in 56 to 57. How does he sit is in 58 to 63. How does he walk? 64 to 70. So this is how it has been covered to talk about Sthita Dhir Muni or Sthita Prajna. So, and we see all these qualities in our Prabhupada. Sometimes now how he revealed, how he was in Krishna consciousness throughout in his life, okay? And even when he was in US, you see, he never adopted their practice. It was others who followed him, okay? And he was fixed in Krishna consciousness. He was confident, and then he knew that Bhagavad Gita is the principle of life. And how he reacted, how the followers, he met all standards of people, right? So how did he react to the actions of others? How did he made them to take up this Krishna consciousness? Then his mentality was very much in Krishna's mentality. When senses are withdrawn from sense object, how is he situated? How he engaged his senses? And we have a lot of examples from the Parampara. Our Goswamis and our Prabhupada, his spiritual master, Saraswati Thakur, then Baba Thakur, then we know that Bhakti Vinoda Thakur. So we have, so how does he speak? We are going to see that. What does Krishna say? Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Prajati Yada Kaman Sarvan Partha Manogatan Atmani Ivatmana Tushtaha Sthita Prajna Tadochate. So what did the Lord say? Blessed Lord said, O Partha, when a man gives up all varieties of sense desire, which arise from mental concoction, and when his mind finds satisfaction in the self alone, then he is said to be in pure transcendental consciousness. So, how does the Krishna consciousness person symptoms this given here? He says, Lord says he would have given up all varieties of sense desire which arise from mental concoction. What is the mental concoction? What does your mind say? How the mind works. Okay. And when his mind finds satisfaction in the self alone, then he is said to be in pure transcendental consciousness. So how does your mind behave? So that, I mean, this change is not just externally. It's not that, you come into Krishna consciousness, you're doing your japa, you will wear tilak, and you will, the way you do pranams to the seniors and things, that is not the change we see. The change is in the consciousness level. Some other changes, external changes, you also see. but internally how he is, in what mood and what the way he behaves and how he lives his life. Okay. So what is the land that, what are the characteristics of, and what is that should be the mind? Mental concoction is like this. The mind will say, whenever it sees some object, it says, oh, I like that thing, or it will be like, I don't like it. So either it will say, oh, I like it, but I don't want to have it. So your mind is always something or the other, it will always be uh, active. Okay, which sees, suppose you're in a shopping mall, then all the shopping would have done in the mind itself. It will start seeing some object and say, oh, I had this shirt before, but now I don't want. I might like to have a green color one. Why not? Something. Or it will, and then you'll be shopping things, you'll be rejecting things. Either you buy or not, you're already in the mind. It will always be acting. I always does that when you enter the shop. So this is mental speculation. Based on that mental speculation, you will have some desires. Okay, you'll either full for desires for gratification. So Krishna says when the mind is like that, not purified, it will never find satisfaction in the self alone. But Sthita Prajna person he is satisfied. He doesn't have any such desire for material things. And his mind is steady. Steady in one thing. He's always fixed up. So he is not bothered by his whatever the mind is says. He is very much fixed in his goal, in his what he wants to do. And he doesn't look into the thing because he identify his material. He's not identifying himself with the body because he knows he's a spirit soul. And we have certain examples like that in our scriptures. Like the best is our Prahlad. But Prahlad, he was fixed in his mind. He was all the time in the memory, in the consciousness of the Lord Narayan. So whatever his father troubled him, like, he tried to kill him and thing, but he was not disturbed. He was fixed in his mind with one Krishna consciousness. He was all the time with Narayan. Even when he was put in fire, he was all the time, never disturbed him because he had no desire for the material thing. He was not interested in playing with his boy, with his friends, or in any of the things which the small children do in that games. But he was all the time meditating on the Lord, right? And we also have our best example is our Prabhupada. So here, what does we see in the purport? What does Prabhupada writes in the purport? So the Supreme Personality said, O Partha, when a man gives up all varieties of desire for sense gratification, which arise from mental concoction, and when his mind thus purified finds satisfaction in self, said to be in things. How does he get here? Prabhupada writes, like, how does he give up his desire? So artificially, that here one has to give up all kinds of, Prabhupada writes, here one has to give up all kinds of sense desire manufactured by mental concoction. Artificially, such sense desires cannot be stopped. You can't stop your thing because your mind is always active. Okay, it will then. Only if you are engaged in Krishna consciousness, then such desires subside without any effort. You don't have to put any effort. All you have to do is engage in Krishna consciousness. Therefore, without, they say, the Prabhu says you have to engage in Krishna consciousness without hesitation. For this, devotional service will help. How does it think? Because otherwise you are in the mental concoction. Other the vikalpa, sankalpa. That is, I like this, I don't like that. So, here, what do we understand here in this, from this verse is that unless we give up the Sthita Prajna person, gives up the variety, desire for sense gratification. How does he do it? Because he engages in the devotional service to the Lord. Because he is in that prajna, he is not disturbed by the desires. He is not desired from the mental platform. That is whether I like this, I don't like that, nothing. He is not attached to any of that thing. So, this is what we have to understand here. Artificially, we cannot stop the desires which arise in the mind. Mind will always be there, it will come. But once you engage, if you tell the mind you don't bother, you are giving the direction to the mind. You're saying that you engage in the Krishna consciousness, you do this. Otherwise, the mind will go here and there and tether and things. So, this is what we have to go beyond the sankalpa and vikalpa. That is, we like this and we don't like. The mind will think, yes, let me do this. Then it will decide, no, I won't do this. Oh, I better not do this. So this kind of deciding and rejecting is what the mind will always be. But once you give a direction to the mind that, no, this is what my guru is told. My guru has told me to chant for 16 rounds. I will do that. I won't look at anything else. Then the mind will not do anything because it's already knows that you have decided, that you have given that direction to the mind. Then it won't disturb you. Otherwise, if you don't, then what happens? You will think, no, I'll do 2 rounds today. Tomorrow I'll do another 2 rounds, or today I'll just do 10 and next day I'll complete the rest 6. Like that, you'll be oscillating. Once you fix whatever it is, this is what my guru has told, my master has told us, I will do. If you take that decision, then what happens? That's the direction you have given to the mind, no? That you will do that. So in a day, you will complete the 16 rounds. Like that, the mind requires direction. The mind requires direction. And that you can get it only from your guru, the scriptures and things. That's right. So artificially, you cannot stop your desires for things. Only thing you have to engage your mind in Krishna consciousness. So this is what this verse here Krishna says. This is how a Sthita Prajna person is. That is, he gives up all varieties of sense here which arise from mental compassion. He is steady and he is happy with himself because he knows he is in the servant of the Lord. He knows his position. So he knows that his duty is to serve the Lord. Because of that, these are the symptoms. That is, they are not troubled by anything. And then the next question is what? How does he speak? How does he speak? It means, like, how does he answer? How does he answer to, like, somebody might shout at you, or someone will be angry with you, or someone will come and insult you, or someone will come and criticize you, or will create some problem for you. Then how do you react? That is what here it means. How does he speak? So here the Lord think that in those situations, what comes out of you, this is what Krishna says. Dukkeshva anudigna manaha, sukkesha vigata spraha, vitaraga bhaya krodha, sthita dhira munis uchyate. Whose mind, who is not disturbed in mind, even amidst the threefold miseries. What are the threefold miseries we encounter? Hare Krishna, can anyone remember that? Threefold miseries? What do we get? Miseries due to other living entities or from our own mind, Atmatika, Adhyatmika, and the Atma Daivika. That is from the nature, like earthquakes or things from the nature, or from other living entities, from the animals or other things, or from our own mind. So we get, these are the threefold miseries. So it says mind is not disturbed by any of these miseries and is not elated when there is happiness and is free from attachment, fear and anger. It's called a stage of steady mind. So in the mind, that is when there is suffering, you don't get disturbed. Okay. And when there is happiness, you don't get elated in mind. So how do we understand this? Like, suppose when a person is in happiness, when he's attached to that happiness he has got, then he's always thinking about it again and again, about that enjoyment. Like suppose you have eaten a samosa and you liked it very much. Okay, then but later on you'll be thinking, even for the next 10 days, you'll be thinking, why that samosa was so nice. It was not like that, it was 10 years back, but this was really good. And in your mind, you keep, it goes on, and that means you got attached to that enjoyment you got from that eating the samosa, right? So the person was too attached to that sensual pleasure he got from eating that samosa. Or suppose I take another example, like you ate a bad preparation and for 10 days you will be lamenting on that, oh God, I hate that lunch. It was not at all good. That's all. The dal was not cooked and this rice was not nice. And like that, you'll be lamenting. So it was horrible. I will never eat that thing. And that too much lamenting, that means you were disturbed by that feeling. That when you add the meal. So anything which disturbed you or which you had happiness, that if you keep on thinking about it, contemplating on that enjoyment you had, contemplating on the distress you had, that means that you got attached to that. That is what here it says. The mind, it's not that you won't feel happiness or you should not feel misery. No. But if you have not thought about, okay, momentarily you felt unhappy and all that, but you don't keep thinking about it day and day now, that means you get disturbed. But if you just, I know it happens. Oh yeah, the food, the sweet was nice, and then you go on. You don't think of something else. You don't keep thinking about the same thing. So that way, that experience, if it gets stuck to your mind, that means you got attached to that uh, situation. So, and there was another example given by Prabhuji was that example of a non-stick frying pan. What is its nature? That whatever the item you cook in that non-stick pan, whatever, it doesn't stick to the pan, no? There is contact, but there is touch, but there's no sticking. Similarly, as we are in this material world, there will be contact with these sense objects. So momentarily we'll feel pain, momentarily we'll enjoy those objects. It will give us some stimulation. It will be there. But we should be detached like the non-stick pan. We should not get stuck to those experiences and remain in that thing. So dukkesha. So only we are free from this attachment, fear and anger is called a person to be in stage of steady mind. Okay. So let us see what Prabhupada writes on this attachment and fear. Yeah, we'll just see that. Anybody can read. I think we can read. Anybody would volunteer for this purport? The word Muni means Hare Krishna.
The word Hare Krishna. The word Muni means one who can agitate his mind in various ways for mental speculation without coming to a factual conclusion. It is said that every Muni has a different angle of vision, and unless a Muni differs from other Munis, he cannot be called a Muni in the strict sense of the term.
Vishir Yasya Matam Na Bhinnam.
But a Srita Dhir Muni, as mentioned herein by the Lord, is different from an ordinary Muni. The Srita Dhir Muni is always in Krishna consciousness, for he exhausted all his business of creative speculation. He is called Prashanta.
Go ahead, Mataji. Nihesha Mano Ratantaraha.
Okay. Or one who has surpassed the stage of mental speculation and has come to conclusion that Lord Sri Krishna or Vasudeva is everything. Vasudevaha Sarvam Iti Sa Mahatma Sudurlabhaha. He is called a Muni fixed in mind. Such a fully Krishna conscious person is not at all disturbed by the onslaughts of the threefold miseries, for he accepts all miseries as the mercy of the Lord, thinking himself only worthy of more trouble due to his past misdeeds, and he sees that his miseries by the grace of Lord are minimized to the lowest. Similarly, when he is happy, he gives credit to the Lord, thinking himself unworthy of the happiness. He realizes that it is due to only the Lord's grace that he is in such a comfortable condition and able to render better service to the Lord.
Okay, let's just stop with this. We'll just understand till this. So here Prabhupada gives the explanation of the Vaishnavas, how the Vaishnavas think. That is, when there is a misery to him, he thinks it's a mercy of the Lord, thinking you would have got, he's worthy of more trouble, but because by the grace of Lord, the miseries have been minimized. He doesn't think that it's too much. He thinks I should have got more misery, but because the Lord is merciful, I'm getting only this much. Similarly, when he is happy, he gives credit to the Lord, thinking is actually is unworthy for the happiness. And because of Lord's grace, is in such a comfortable condition. And he is able to render better service to the Lord. So this is how the Vaishnava thinks, like the person in Krishna conscious thinks that if he gets a misery, he thinks, because the Lord is merciful that I'm getting only this much. Otherwise, I would have got much more trouble. And when he's getting happiness, he says, I'm not worthy for it, but still God has given so that I can serve him better. So this is how their conception of how they handle the misery or the sufferings or the happiness, right? And it is up to us whether we can think it as a misery or we can think it as a mercy from the Lord. Okay, this is the perceptions of the Sthita Prajna, how he handles this, how is the person in Krishna consciousness is not disturbed by the onslaughts of the threefold miseries, because he accepts the whatever comes to him, he accepts as the mercy from the Lord. Okay, and here attachment. So the attachment you can see from where the Lord says, no, what is attachment and all that. So here, attachment and fear and things, here Prabhupada gives the explanation. Yes, Mataji, continue from here. And for the service of the Lord.
And for the service of the Lord, he is always daring and active and is not influenced by the attachment or aversion. Attachment means accepting things for one's own sense gratification, and detachment is the absence of such sensual attachment. But one fixed in Krishna consciousness has neither attachment nor detachment because his life is dedicated in the service of the Lord. Consequently, he is not at all angry even when his attempts are unsuccessful. Success or no success, a Krishna conscious person is always steady in his determination. Hare Krishna.
Hare. So why does the devotee see that misery as a mercy of Lord? Not because of his is not in the meta form. He's not thinking it's a theory, but he knows it. He understands that Krishna is his father. That is his kind father and is merciful. And he has got a lot of faith in the Lord. That's why for him, whatever the misery comes, he accepts it as a mercy of Lord because he understands. He is in the understanding. He is not just thinking from the mental platform. He understands completely that he is the servant of the Lord and the Lord is his father, merciful. And because of that, he wants to be in all the time serving the Lord. So that he is. So he's not scared. That's why the Lord says is for the service of the Lord is always daring and active. So he is not influenced by the attachment. I like this or don't like, even if it doesn't like it, but if it is beneficial, that is, it will help him to serve the Lord, he will use it, even if he doesn't like, getting up early in the morning. But the Guru says you get up early, it is good for you and you should do the thing, he will get up. He is not nodding. So anything daring, see, that's what when the Prabhupada went all the way to US, it was a daring job because he went when he was nearing 70s in that age. But he took that journey because he wanted to serve the Lord. He knew that was the direction given by his spiritual master. But he could only go at that age, so he went. It was daring affair, but he did it. So they are not influenced by the attachment or aversion. That is, I like this thing, then only I'll do it. Or if I don't like, so I won't do it for the Lord. No. Whether you like it or don't like it, you'll be serving the Lord. So this is how the devotee thinks. So he has no fear when he's doing the service to the Lord. And attachment means accepting things for one's own gratification. Detachment is the absence of such sensual. But person who is fixed in consciousness, he has got neither attachment nor detachment. This is what we mean. No, attachment means we like things which we want, which we like it, and we get detached to things which we don't like, isn't it? But here, person who is fixed in Krishna conscious has neither attachment nor detachment because his life is dedicated to the service of the Lord. So he is not angry because he is neutral. For him, nothing, because it's all he'll be doing for the Lord, whether it's success or not success, it is Krishna's the thing, because he's not bothered about the results, because that is all for the Lord. Results are thing. So Krishna consciousness person is already always steady in his determination. So this is how he will react to the situations. So this is how does he speak. Okay. So when there is happiness and free from attachment, fear and anger is called a sage of steady mind. Okay. And in the material world, one who is unaffected by whatever good or evil he may obtain, neither praising it nor despising it, is firmly fixed in perfect knowledge. So this is how the presence. He is the completely free. Then comes to how does he sit? That means how does he? Next question is how does he sit? How does he think? Now we said no, he's not disturbed by the thing. He gives up all the desires and all that. Here, Krishna gives a very good analogy. One is able to withdraw his senses from the sense object as the tortoise draws its limbs within the shell is the one who said in fixed in perfect consciousness. That is, see, he's fixed in the thing, not that he doesn't, is away from the sense object. Sense objects are all over the place, all over. Just like in Corona time, no, there were virus was everywhere. But people who had immunity, though he was walking around, he was doing his day-to job and all that, because his immunity was such that he was not affected by that disease, by the corona. But if your immunity was not much, then you are succumbed to the virus. The same way here, this one who is in Sthita perfect consciousness is able to withdraw his senses from the sense object. Like the tortoise, now when it sees some danger, what does it do? It will take all his limbs and puts himself inside the shell. So nothing from outside can disturb him. No one can go beyond his shell, right? Same here, the Prabhu Krishna says, just like the tortoise, this Sthita Prajna person will withdraw his senses from the sense objects and he is not disturbed at all. Even if something happens, I think he is perfectly fixed in this consciousness. Okay. So when we see this, and what does Prabhupada writes here in the purport, we'll just have a glimpse. So here the best example is said herein is the tortoise. The tortoise can at any moment wind up its senses, exhibit them again at the time for particular purpose. Similarly, the senses of Krishna conscious persons are used only for some particular persons in the service of the Lord and are withdrawn otherwise. So Arjuna is being taught to use here his senses for the service of the Lord instead for his own satisfaction. So we use the senses always in the service of the Lord is the example set by the analogy of the tortoise who keeps the senses with him. So this is how we here how he sits. That means how he handles the sense objects and senses. Okay. Though the embodied soul may be restricted from sense object, the taste for sense object remains. But ceasing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste is fixed and conscious. So just because he's not looking at the object doesn't mean that thing, but he might have still that liking for that object. It might be still remaining in his mind.
मैं मंडे को निंजा पाऊंगा.
So
मैं मंडे को निंजा पाऊंगा. पाऊंगा, सॉरी, मैं निंजा पाऊंगा. मैं
So how does it say? Withdraw senses from sense objects. Okay, it's an embodied soul is restricted from sense object, but the taste for that will still remain in his mind. Okay, and that will won't go. So what we have to do is we have to engage our senses on something else. Don't leave it away from that. Don't leave it loose. That's what here the Prabhupada says. I mean, the Krishna says that taste for sense object. If he has a taste for higher, develop a higher taste, then what happens? This taste for thing will lose. You won't have it anymore. Okay. So then he'll be able to fix his consciousness. So how does he, okay, withdraws his senses like the tortoise, but what does he do? He'll use his senses for the service of the Lord. Because of that, because he's serving the Lord, for him the attraction to the material sense objects becomes less. It doesn't hold good. But there are people who try to control their senses have failed in the scriptures. We have the example of Vishwamitra, who got attracted to Menaka. And we have such a lot of examples who were attracted. So here, if you use your senses for the Lord, engage it, like, engage in cooking for the Lord, preparing for the thing, or work in the temple, do the deity worship, or take prasadam, and everything you do for the Lord, or use your senses, then what happens? You are engaged. And the best example we have is the King Ambarish Maharaj, Yeah. Okay. So the sense, but okay. But the senses are so strong and impetuous, O Arjuna, that they forcibly carry away the mind even of a man of discrimination who is endeavoring to control them. Okay. But the senses are very strong. So we have, let me see. Yeah. They forcibly carry away the mind of man to trying to control them. So we have Durvasa Muni example. He was very angry with King Ambarish. Ambarish used all his senses for the Lord. Okay. And sage Vishmantra by the Menaka. So usually they give in the example of for controlling the senses, engaging your senses for the Lord is the best is by engaging in this Krishna service and use all the senses for that. Maharaj Ambarish Maharaj is the best example. We can see yeah. So here in the purport, Prabhupada writes, I think this one you can read that. Anyone else can give this highest conception of yoga. Please.
Shall I read?
Yes, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Antaji, whether it is complete or no?
That's the
highest conception. That's the highest conception of yoga perfection is Krishna consciousness. Is clearly explained in this verse. And unless one is Krishna conscious, it is not at all possible to control the senses. As cited above, the great sage Durvasa Muni picked a quarrel with Maharaja Ambarisha, and Durvasa Muni unnecessarily became angry out of pride and therefore could not check his senses. On the other hand, the king, although not as powerful as the yogi, as the sage, but a devotee of the Lord, silently tolerated all the sages' injustices and thereby emerged victorious. The king was able to control his senses because of the following qualifications as mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam 9.4.18-20. Savai mana Krishna padara vindayor vacham sivai kunda gunanuvarnani karau harir mandira marjana dishu Shrutim Chakara Achyuta Satkathodeye Mugunda Lingale Darshane Drishtu Tatpritya Gatra Sparshe Angasangamam Grihnam cha Tatpada Saroja Saurabhe Srimat Tulasya Rasanam Tadarpide Padau Hareshe Padau Hareshetra Padanusarpane Shiro Rishikesha Padabhivandane Kamam Chadasi Natu Kama Kamyaya Natu Kama Kamaya Yedottama Shloka Janashrayarati. King Ambarisha fixed his mind on the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, engaged his words in describing the abode of the Lord, his hands in cleansing the temple of the Lord, his ears in hearing the pastimes of Lord, his eyes in seeing the form of the Lord, his body in touching the body of the devotee, his nostrils in smelling the flavor of the flowers offered to the lotus feet of Lord, his tongue in tasting the tulasi leaves offered to him, his legs in traveling to the holy places where his temple is situated, his head is offering obeisances unto the Lord, and his desires in fulfilling the desires of Lord. And all these qualifications made him fit to become a Matpara devotee of the Lord. The word Matpara is
okay, Mataji.
most
This King Amrish is the best example. Prabhupada gives quotes this verse many times in the Bhagavad Gita, that he is the one who used all his senses for the service of the Lord. Okay, his mind he fixed on the lotus feet, his words, his hands in cleaning the temple, his ears in hearing the pastimes, eyes in seeing the form of the Lord, his body in touching the body of the devotee, nostrils in smelling the flavor of flowers, then his tongue in tasting the tulsi leaves, legs is traveling to place. So every sense of his he engaged in. He was a king. He had the responsibilities of ruling the kingdom, and in spite of all that, his mood and his mission, I mean his consciousness, he had engaged all his senses for the Lord. He was such a pure devotee. That's why he's known as Matpara devotee of the Lord. So that that is what the definition here of the Sthita Prajna. Okay, he was not attached or aversion he didn't have, and his mental and his mind was all fixed on the Lord. So this is what we mean by fixing the sitting. That is what the Sthita Prajna is all about. Okay, and then continue, Mataji, the last paragraph.
Hare Krishna, Jai Srila Prabhupada. The word Matpara is most significant in this connection. How one can become Matpara is described in the life of Maharaja Ambarisha. Srila Baladeva Vidyabhushana, a great scholar and Acharya in the line of Matpara, remarks, Mat Bhakti Prabhavena Sarvendriya Vijaya Purvika Swatma Drishti Sulabhedi Bhava. The senses can be completely controlled only by the strength of the devotional services to Krishna. Also, the example of fire is sometimes given. As a blazing fire, it burns everything within a room. Lord Vishnu, situated in the heart of the yogi, burns up all kinds of impurities. The Yoga Sutra also prescribes meditation on Vishnu and not meditation on the void. The so-called yogis who meditate on the something other than Vishnu form, simply waste their time in vain. Search after some phantasmagoria. We have to be Krishna conscious, devoted to the personality of Godhead. This is the aim of real yoga. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
So what is the main from here? What we learn is that we have to engage our senses in the Krishna consciousness. Only that way you can control your mind. Only by devotional strength of devotional service to the Lord. Otherwise, you cannot. That is very clearly said here. Because unless we meditate on the Lord, only then He will burn up all our impurities. Because that is the Yoga Sutra. Okay, this is the aim of real. You have to meditate on the Lord, you have to do everything. Only then you can control your senses or your desire. Otherwise, you can't restrict. Otherwise, you will be succumb to that. Okay. So let us stop with this, and then we can, because this will take up tomorrow. I mean, the next, how we fall down, no? I think this flow chart, you all know how it happens, how we fall down in delusion. Okay. So we can take up, we stop with this and then take it in the next tomorrow. And then stop.